Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope this day finds you well. Oh my, I miss you guys. I know you're a big part of my life, but I didn't realize how big until these days when I just miss you. I find it interesting that in this COVID-19 life that we find ourselves, this kind of shut down, shelter in existence we find ourselves, that it is occurring during the season of Lent. Lent is that time in the church calendar where we are reminded that we are dust, and to dust we will return. It all started several weeks ago, on what we called Ash Wednesday. And Christians around the world gathered for worship, and during the service they received upon their forehead the imposition of ashes in the form of a cross. And we did that here at First Christian Church. And those words were spoken that will be spoken over our graves. Ashes to ashes, and dust to dust. This season helps us to remind us of our mortality. That we are human, that we do get sick, and that in the end we die, all of us. The statistics on death are, they're hard to argue with. We all have a 100% mortality rate, okay? I may die in 30 years. I may die in a few weeks from the COVID virus. I don't want to be morbid about it. It's just the reality of our own humanity and of the world in which we live. Okay? Some of us will die a painful death, others a not so painful death. Others of us will die expectedly, or some of us just out of the blue. That's reality. We're mortal, we're made from dust, and we die. And that reality is sad, but any Christian attempt to sentimentalize that is an affront to the sanctity of life. The Apostle Paul, referred to death as the last enemy to be destroyed. And in his theology, he saw Jesus at war with death. Okay? And that Jesus' resurrection was the decisive victory over death. And that was offered to all of God's children. It's a victory we celebrate on Easter, and should be a victory we celebrate whenever we Jesus followers gather together. We are an Easter people. Death's reality is sad, yet it can be, and hear me on this, it can be liberating, it can even be invigorating. In Lent, we remember we do not need to be afraid. And if we do not need to be afraid even of death, oh my, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities in how to walk upon this good green earth. Historically, the best moments of the church have been when she, the church, has been under the pain of death and is not scared to give up her own life. As I've shared with you before, I do not want to be a part of a church that is in a survival mode. I want to be part of a church that is willing to give and to sacrifice all that she has on behalf of God and love of neighbor. In Lent, we are reminded that we need to redeem the time we have here on earth, that we need to reclaim it. that we should not squander our life on trivial things like, how many hours we can put into a video game, or in playing Call of Duty, or in online shopping, or how much time we can put into endless shopping and chit-chat, or endless time into our egoistic pursuits of, worldly pleasures and success and careerism and money and power and fame, or how many followers we can get on Instagram. Life is short, and we're mortal, and we live and we die, whether it's tomorrow or decades from now. But we must live for what truly matters. And I think Jesus gives us insight into that in what he embraced in his life. In Lent, Jesus' followers choose freely to give up some kind of pleasure. Not a sin, but a pleasure. A pleasure like a fine wine, or some fine food, whatever, meat, or whatever. Give up coffee, or social media, or television, or eating out. For Lent, we kind of choose our own adventure, what we choose to abstain from. In that abstinence, we are seeking a transformation deep within our souls, a purging, a purifying, if you will, to whatever we have been attached to. And in that void, we are seeking then to reclaim our connection with God. In that act of stripping down, if you will, of stripping down to the holy, to the bare essence of life, we do that in a way to create space in our way of life, in our budgets, in our time, in our schedule, and above all, in our soul, so that we can open ourselves to the presence of God and the Spirit of Jesus, who defeated death. Here's the thing. We're all walking through this Lenten journey, whether we are Catholic or Baptist or disciple of Christ, whatever. And this virus, this shelter-in-place kind of existence, where there's been economic fallout and uncertainty about the future, all of this is kind of a Lenten experience, an abstinence, a stripping down, if you will, a purging, a purifying of our soul and our society. The virus really can be seen as an invitation to face reality and to meet God in that reality. The reality that we are mortal, that we are frail, that we are susceptible to disease, that we're not nearly as in control as we think we are, that we need each other, that we need God, and you know what? It's all okay. In his book, I've spoken about before, in his book, The Screw-Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis, C.S. Lewis wrote that book back in 1942 while he was living in England during World War II. There he was in London, surrounded by the duress of life and the imminent presence of warfare all around him. And he writes this book, and it's a series of letters between a senior demon by the name of Wormwood and an apprentice by the name of Screwtape. And in this correspondence between these two demons, we hear of the patient. Patient was a code word for a follower, a disciple of Jesus. And it's this patient, if you will, that Screwtape is trying to tempt. And he writes at one point, Screwtape does, "How disastrous it is for us demons that human beings are being continually reminded of their death because of the warfare all around them." I guess you could argue, that, this pandemic we find ourselves is reminding us, of our own mortality, right? But Screwtape goes on to write, one of our best weapons is contented worldliness. And that sense of contented worldliness is being rendered useless by the imminent presence of war. Because in wartime, no human being believes that they will live forever. This ploy, if you will, of contented worldliness, of feeling like the world can give us whatever we want, that we can live however we want. It almost gives us the illusion of immortality, of how we live and the lifestyles we choose. All of that's out the window, according to Screwtape, because, we are being reminded that we are mortal. In Lewis's day, by warfare. In our day, by COVID-19. Well, in this cultural moment, we do find ourselves not even human beings, right? None of us can believe we will live forever. Or at the very least, live as if we could. The virus, as with wartime, staves off or prevents this sense of contented worldliness. The goal of this awareness that we have right now, that the world falls short in bringing us true contentment, the goal of all this is acknowledging that we are mortal and we are going to die. But we do not need to fear because we are followers of Jesus. Because we follow a rabbi, dear friends, who came back from the dead. For many, these days are a waking up, if you will, from a lifestyle of contented worldliness, a spiritual slumber, a stupor. The idea that we are mortal, that we are made from dust, it does not need to make us morose or sullen or gloomy. It can actually make us quite joyful and very grateful and more present to the moment and alive in the very marrow of our bones, because Christ is alive. So to close, may you recognize where you are right now. Once again, put your feet on the ground. Feel your body, feel your muscles, your nervous energy you have right now. And remember the body you're in. Even though it may be healthy right now and strong, It is dying. And one day, though, it will come back from the dead. Feel the reality that you are mortal. Every minute, every second is a precious gift. We do not, as Christ followers, take or seize the day. We receive it as a gift given to us. A gift from God. It's not a right. It's a gift to be alive. Today is a gift. May you remember for today and the week to come, whatever comes or does not come, may you remember that life is short, it's meaningful, and oh, so beautiful. It's a gift. You are alive this very moment with Jesus. And you do not need to be afraid, even of death itself. Peace to you all.